For most Black Americans, especially those in the South, the front porch isn't just part of the entry into the house. It is the place we enter community. It's not just the comfort or safety we experience there, but it's where we do some people watching and good reflection. On the front porch is where we tell the truth with a little sweetener and an awesome time along the way. We take what we learn and we act. On this episode, we discuss all things related to youth, education, community, and the politics of people.
Hi, folks. It's KaCey, and I'm so excited. This is On the Front Porch with KaCey. And there's so much that I want to share with you. And so I wanted to make sure that I recorded an intro episode before we really get into kind of the meat and potatoes about what this podcast has been designed to shed light on. I thought it important that you understood the inspiration behind wanting to start a podcast, but also the symbolism in the name, also the colors in the logo, and then also why I chose to name this intro episode Freedom Redefined. So let's just jump into it. Oh, goodness. I used to think a lot of times that the giftings that I have weren't sexy. And what I mean by that is that when you look at other people and their ability to really make a quick influence in their own lives and the lives of other people, they usually come with something that other people want or need, or see it as a resource or a service or a product that they can get some immediate benefit from. And so some examples include singing. Now, I can hold a tune in a choir. I took piano lessons for a number of years, but yet I'm not going to sit down and profess to say that I can play by ear or could even make extra money by accompanying someone on the piano. I'm not that great of an artist. I can't draw to save my life. I can put a hem in a piece of clothing, but I can't sew. I can do my own hair, but I'm probably not going to do yours. And so hopefully by now you're getting the picture. I don't have a gift that can be easily commodified. And that's what I mean by sexy. But the one thing that I know I can do well, and I am learning at this stage in my life how to embrace it even the more, is talk. Now, you all know my mama and my daddy. You know that talking comes easy. I am able to weave together words. I'm able to read the room. I can go really, really soft and help you sit with a very hard concept. I have perfected the pregnant pause. Yeah, I'm okay with being uncomfortable in the silence, and I'm okay with the discomfort that you may feel with the silence, because I know that that is a skill and a tool that is used in speaking. I am more nervous speaking one-on-one than I am in front of 10,000 people. So talking is something that I do well, but I get easily annoyed by folks who talk and they don't say anything. And so I wanted to make sure that I had something to say. And I also wanted to find a way to use the gift that God gave me, which is language and speaking and being able to invoke an emotion from just the sheer sound of my voice, how I choose to use it, and what I choose to say. And so, in part, that is some of the inspiration behind choosing a podcast, right? I mean, it's literally me talking. It is the most foundational way for me to be able to use this thing that really is a gift for me. Now, the other part is for those of you who know me and have been privy to the work that I have done in community in Atlanta. You know that I ran for office. I ran for the Atlanta Board of Education in a citywide seat in November of 2021. No, I did not win, but all loss is not a loss. And people constantly ask me, will you run again? And I don't know if I have fully come to 100% of an answer, either yes or no. But I knew I did not want to take that experience in vain. I wanted to make sure that I did something with it. Again, I ran citywide as a first-time candidate. The woman who won, I pushed her to a runoff. That's no easy feat for first-time candidates. I also don't know 20,000 people, and yet 20,000 people voted for me. It reminded me that, what you had to say on the campaign trail resonated with quite a few folks, and maybe you need to continue that conversation. So in a nutshell, the inspiration behind wanting to start a podcast really was I talk well, I like talking, and I wanted to find a way to use everything that I learned from campaigning and all of the questions too, and be able to merge those two things together in a way that I felt would be productive. So that is why I chose to do a podcast. Now, why on the front porch? Now, the intro tells us a little bit about why. It is where we gather as Southerners, right? I mean, I used to sometimes wonder, do I need to really kind of highlight the fact that I'm a girl raised in the South? And believe me, that term was not meant for somebody that looks like me. I'm very aware of that. And I have this bittersweet relationship about being a Southerner, right? We can speak about the storied history, and I say storied for a reason. I'm intentional about my words because some of it is made up. Some of it is made up in how we translate facts and historical markers for society to generations today. So I know what storied means, and I know why I chose that word. But I also revel in the beauty of the South and how being Black in the South builds a different kind of thick skin that you're probably not going to get most other places. But also living in the South is where you see a lot of front porches because our houses are usually bigger. And again, they're usually bigger because they were once the big house. And we have modeled a lot of our architecture around the things that have given our ancestors some peace of mind. And so I would be remiss if I told you that I didn't love a big front porch. One of my dreams is that when I'm able to build my house, my dream house, my forever home from the ground up, it is going to be a ranch style home, but it is going to be huge. And every door is going to lead to a wraparound porch. I have been in love with porches for as long as I can remember. Because the front porch is where I have some of my first memories of snapping beans and preparing dinner with my grandmother on the front porch back at home in Beechwood in Virginia Beach, Virginia. The front porch in my family is where you see the elders, the aunties, and the older women sit on the porch while the children play in that big old yard that held all the cars in my family as we would gather after church on Sundays. The front porch is where my grandmother, when she was alive, and now my Aunt Harriet, will look out the window to see who was coming up that long driveway. The front porch is where we'd meet folks if we had to assess them just a little bit before we let them fully into the house. The front porch is where a lot of our initial communication and engagement began. And so I wanted this podcast to also be metaphorically a symbol of safety for us to have those conversations where we have to, assess some things and some people as we talk about this work, community, how we show up in it, right? So that's why the name On the Front Porch with KaCey. Now, let's get into these colors. They're not typical colors that you'll see together. And I wasn't necessarily worried about, oh, it's such a beautiful aesthetic, right? It's this deep kind of rich yellow, almost like a golden hue. Then there's red, and then there's a particular color blue. Well, the yellow for me symbolizes a new day, a new opportunity, a new chance, right? And I believe that in all things, we both need and deserve that. Red, we know for most Black folks, when we include the color red in something, it is symbolic of the blood that has been shed by our ancestors to get us to this place that we're in now. And I always want to do my very best to honor and to remember the ultimate sacrifices that were made on our behalf. And then there is Haint Blue. This is my favorite color. In this piece that I'm talking about now, my favorite color is purple, but between these three colors I just mentioned, Haint Blue is my favorite out of all of them. And Haint Blue is a nod to my daddy and to our people. I am a descendant of a man who is of Gullah Geechee DNA. And the rich heritage there is something that I am uber proud of. And I mention every single chance that I can. And Daddy was born in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. That is literally on the edge of Charleston. And in Charleston, as you travel, and you may see some very beautiful homes, right, that have astronomical price tags on them. But you may see this blue color painted on the ceiling of the porch. Now, most folks who may be white in Charleston may have some idea of why that color blue is so prevalent amongst folks in that area. Other folks from outside of Charleston who just move and just love the colors and, just think that it's only because of the proximity to the ocean may not be fully aware of why Haint Blue specifically. Well, haint is the southern variation of the word haunt. And that also refers to or identifies a ghost or a spirit. But the part of haint actually means a bad spirit, a bad ghost, if you will, right? And so the color blue is painted on the ceiling of the porch because in Gullah Geechee folklore, bad spirits can't cross over water. And so the blue does represent water, but not because of only the proximity to the Atlantic Ocean, but because bad spirits cannot traverse water, right? And so what you do is literally paint the ceilings of the porch, paint blue to keep the bad spirits away. Now, outside of finding every opportunity that I can to incorporate my Gullah Geechee heritage, I also want to keep some bad spirits away from this podcast, right? So let's just be real about this thing. I want to make sure that this is a place, this is an opportunity, a virtual digital space where we can come and have the conversation we need to, but we have it in love, y'all. And sometimes love and truth doesn't always feel good, but the intent is never to do harm. The intent is never to tear down, even if it means tearing down constructs, but never people. And so I wanted to make sure that in a nod to my Geechee folks, I wanted to also make sure we keep the bad spirits or the haints away. So that is why that color is incorporated into the logo. Now, why Freedom Redefined, and how does all of this paint a picture on a canvas for you? Well, Freedom Redefined for me is about understanding the part we play in our own independence. Now, I will say this, and I think this is a great segue to another segment that you may hear me refer to from time to time, and it's called These People Here. And these people here are usually folks that did not get something right over the last couple of days or between the times that we are spending together. And as I was preparing for this particular intro episode, the decision by the United States Supreme Court had not yet been officially handed down with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. Now, I don't profess to have every detail and to know all the specifics of the legal jargon in that opinion that was given recently. But it is a very real-time example of how independence is subjective. It is subjective, y'all. I believe that for all of its growth opportunities, the United States of America is still one of the best places to live. I don't know of any other place that I would want to up and move to. I got some ideas if I had to move, but honestly, I don't want to. And so this is not a bash America statement when I say Freedom Redefined. And this is not a bash America statement when I say that our independence is under attack. But I will say this. If we don't fully realize that independence is subjective, then we're going to continue to get blindsided every opportunity they can create for us. Roe versus Wade isn't about any individual's particular definition of life or not. It really is about choice. And the choice that we thought we were giving being in a free nation to be able to have autonomy over our own bodies. I will say this. I will say that it is ironic that this country was built on the premise of wanting to have their freedom, right, from a British government to turn around and create these sanctions that also oppressed people. Still trying to grapple with that. For folks who also say that we should be constitutionalist, right? Meaning that we should respect the Constitution as it was written. And when Black folks say that, let me just out the gate, right? Even in this intro episode, this isn't even the first official episode. But when Black folks say that to me, my response to them is, but do you realize that you weren't even considered a whole human being when that Constitution was written? Which means that there was no thought of us other than being property when the Constitution was written by old white men, most of whom were slave owners. That alone is enough for me to say maybe we need to figure out a different interpretation of this Constitution and all of its inalienable rights that come along with it, because I and none of the people that I come from, or with the exception of my white ancestors, which on the vending side, we have pinpointed and we know who they are, we were not considered in any of those writings that now make up our nation's Constitution, Bill of Rights. So I say that to say, why are we fighting for something that had no intentions of protecting us? Now, that does not mean that we don't benefit from it. That does not mean that it does not protect us today. Okay? Hear me well. But to say that we should respect the Constitution as it was written, it literally was written to classify Black people as property. So if nothing else, can we find another rationale, another point of logic? Because that ain't it. That one is not working. Okay? Let's just throw that one out. Let's go back to the drawing board and let's figure something else out, because that one ain't it. Right? And so as we talk about freedom redefined, it really is one understanding that freedom is subjective, both from a systemic perspective, an institutionalized perspective, and even in our own personal lives, right? Think about what keeps us confined from being our complete, total, free selves. And so if freedom is subjective, if independence itself is subjective, then how do we redefine those things so that we can move through all of the changes and all of the challenges that our society are seeming to bring to the forefront at this particular time? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here to say that I have all the answers. And this isn't necessarily the type of podcast that is going to give you the answers. My goal is to make us think. My goal is to inspire us and motivate us to do something within the part of the world that we can control. And that's usually the community that we meet when we step outside on our front porch. So I hope you hang in there with me. It's going to get better, right? It is going to get more robust. We're going to have some phenomenal guests. We're going to do a lot of fun things on this particular podcast. But we have to get to the root of the matter. We have to get to the heart of it before we can figure out how to change anything. And that's just the truth of the matter. I'm literally sitting here recording this as I'm listening to fireworks outside of my window. I didn't have to go to Centennial Olympic Park. Because of freedoms that I am afforded, I get to live in a particular part of the city of Atlanta where I can literally step outside on my front porch and see the fireworks. And so I'm grateful. I am grateful that I live in a place where I can get the best of all of the worlds that I think are important in terms of the makeup of who I am as a person, as a leader, as a community member, as a nonprofit co-founder. I don't take that lightly. I don't take it lightly that I can walk outside on my front porch and see through the trees, the Bank of America building, and to see the fireworks as they are being displayed in Centennial Olympic Park. So I'm fully aware of even the privilege I have and the freedom I have, although it may be subjective. And so the goal again is not to make people feel bad when they leave this podcast, but it's to make us think. Because we've got to do community better. We've got to serve our young people better. And when we realize that this thing is cyclical, right? It's not linear. There's no start here and go here and end up there. Everything is connected. And when you complete the cycle, you start it over again. It's never ending because that is how life works. That's how generations work. That's how legacy works. And what are we contributing to those things so that those who come after us and really those who are here with us right now can see a better way? So I am excited once again about On the Front Porch with KaCey. I want you to tune in every single Friday where we're going to talk about really life as it relates to being this Black woman in Atlanta, serving young people and community, and how all the pieces fit together. But I want you to be a part of that conversation. So I look forward to having this conversation with you. I want you to bookmark this. I want you to tell somebody about it. And I want you to tune in this Friday, right? We're not skipping no days. We're not skipping no weeks, right? This is the intro. I purposely wanted it to drop on July 4th, which is the day that we celebrate the independence of this country. But we're going to be back on the 8th. We're going to be back on Friday the 8th with our first full-length episode. So I want you to stay tuned for that. All right? Take care. Stay safe. And I'll see you next time on the front porch.